Hi everyone! Today started like any other Saturday. I was lounging on the couch, scrolling through my favourite videos, when Mum called me from the kitchen. "Mia, can you help me clean the attic?" Groaned, "Cleaning the attic? That dusty, dark, cobweb-filled place? No thank you." But before I could come up with an excuse, she said something that caught my attention. "Make sure you look carefully. If you find a small wooden box, bring it to me right away." Her tone was different, serious, almost urgent. Mum wasn't usually like this about cleaning or old things. "What kind of box?" I asked, suddenly curious.
"It's small, with carvings on the lid,"
she replied.
"You'll know it when you see it."
I didn't understand why she seemed so anxious about it, but her words stuck in my mind. I sighed and agreed, even though I still wasn't thrilled about climbing into the attic. As I walked up the creaky stairs, I tried to imagine what could be inside the box. Jewelry, old letters, maybe some kind of hidden treasure. I'd seen enough movies to know that mysterious boxes often held big secrets. When I opened the attic door, a musty smell hit me. The place was exactly how I'd imagined. Dark, cluttered, and covered in dust. Sunlight peeked through a small, dirty window, casting shadows on the piles of old furniture and boxes. I started moving things around, sneezing every few minutes from the dust. There were old clothes, books, and broken toys, but no sign of the box Mum had mentioned. Just when I was about to give up, I noticed something tucked behind an old chest. There it was, a small wooden box with intricate carvings on the lid, just like Mum had described. It looked old, like something out of a fairy tale. My heart raced as I picked it up. Why is this so important to Mum? I wondered aloud. The box felt heavy, as if it held something valuable, or maybe something secret. For a moment, I thought about opening it right there. But then I hesitated. Mum had specifically asked me to bring it to her. Still, the mystery of the box tugged at me. What could be inside? Why had it been hidden away for so long? With the box in my hands, I made my way back downstairs, my mind buzzing with curiosity and questions. When I finally got back downstairs with the wooden box, I couldn't stop staring at it. It was beautiful in an old-fashioned way. The carvings on the lid were like little swirls and patterns, almost like they were telling a story of their own. I placed it on the table in the living room and called out, "Mom, I found the box." She came rushing in, wiping her hands on a dish towel. As soon as she saw it, she froze, her eyes widened, and for a moment, she didn't say a word.
"That's it,"
she whispered, her voice barely audible. I watched as she reached out to touch it, her fingers trembling slightly. It was like the box held some kind of invisible weight. Something I couldn't see but could definitely feel. "What's in it, Mom?" I asked, my curiosity spilling over. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she sat down on the couch, holding the box in her lap like it was something fragile, something precious.
"This box? It belonged to someone very important to me,"
she said finally. Her voice was soft, and there was something in her eyes. Sadness, maybe, or a memory she wasn't ready to share. I wanted to ask more, but it didn't feel like the right time. So instead, I sat next to her and waited. But then, something surprising happened. Instead of opening the box, Mum stood up and said,
"I need to finish cooking dinner. We'll talk about this later."
"What?" I blurted out. "You're just going to leave it here?" She smiled faintly, patting my shoulder.
"Some things take time, Mia. You'll understand when you're older."
Older? That wasn't the answer I wanted. I stared at the box as she walked back to the kitchen. My curiosity was now unbearable. What could possibly be inside that was so important, and yet so hard for her to face. I leaned closer, examining the carvings again. They seemed to shimmer in the light, almost like they were daring me to look inside. For a moment, I thought about opening it myself. Mom didn't specifically say I couldn't, right? But then I remembered the way she held it, how carefully she had treated it. Maybe there was a reason. She wasn't ready to open it yet. Still, the questions kept spinning in my head. Who did the box belong to? Why was it hidden for so long? And why did Mum seem so emotional about it? I decided I needed to know the truth. If Mum wouldn't tell me right now, I'd have to figure it out on my own. But how? After Mum went back to the kitchen, I couldn't sit still. That wooden box was like a magnet, pulling my thoughts toward it no matter how hard. I tried to distract myself. I flopped onto the couch, crossing my arms, staring at the box sitting there so innocently on the table. What could be so important that Mum couldn't even explain it? I muttered to myself. I glanced toward the kitchen. I could hear the clinking of pots and pans and the faint hum of Mum humming her favorite tune. She seemed completely unfazed, as if the box wasn't sitting just a few feet away. I leaned forward, resting my chin on my hands. Every detail of the box fascinated me now. The smooth wood, the delicate carvings, the tiny keyhole in the front. Wait, keyhole? That's when I realized it was locked. Of course it's locked. I sighed, because why would this be easy? But now I had another question. Where was the key? Did Mom have it? Or was it lost somewhere in the attic, buried under decades of dust and forgotten treasures? Unable to resist any longer, I decided to investigate. If I couldn't open the box, maybe I could at least figure out more about it. I carefully picked it up, feeling its weight again. It wasn't too heavy, but it wasn't light either. Something was definitely inside. I tilted it slightly, listening for a sound, but there was only silence. Then I flipped it over, examining the bottom. There, etched faintly into the wood, were initials RS. RS question mark, I whispered. Who's that? The initials didn't match anyone in our family, at least not anyone I knew. My grandparents' names didn't fit, and neither did any of my aunts or uncles. It was like the box belonged to a stranger, or maybe someone from long ago. My heart raced as I imagined all kinds of possibilities. Maybe the box was part of some epic love story, or maybe it held a long, lost family secret. What if it contained letters from someone who had once been deeply in love with Mom or Dad? I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't hear Dad walk into the room.
What you got there, kiddo?
His voice startled me, and I nearly dropped the box. Oh, nothing, I stammered, quickly placing the box back on the table. Just something Mum asked me to bring down from the attic. Dad raised an eyebrow as he looked at the box. Then, just like Mum, his face changed, his smile faded, and his eyes softened. He walked over slowly and picked it up.
This?
He said, almost to himself.
It's been a long time since I've seen this.
You know what it is? I asked eagerly. Dad didn't answer right away. He ran his fingers over the carvings, just like Mom had. Then he let out a deep sigh and put the box back on the table.
Ask your mom,
He said simply, giving me a small pat on the head before heading toward the kitchen. Now I was more confused than ever. Both Mum and Dad clearly knew something about the box, but neither of them would tell me. What was the big deal? And why did it seem like such a heavy secret? I sat back on the couch, staring at the box once more. It felt like the answers, I wanted was so close, yet just out of reach. I didn't know it yet, but I was about to find out that some secrets were bigger than I could have ever imagined. After Dad left the room, I sat there feeling more puzzled than ever. First Mom, now Dad. They both acted like the box was something, more than just an old family keepsake, and yet neither of them seemed willing to explain what it was. I tapped my fingers against the table, my eyes fixed on the box. It seemed to hold its own kind of presence, sitting there quietly as if it knew secrets I wasn't allowed to know. RS? I whispered again, tracing the initials with my finger. I tried to think of every possible person those letters could belong to. A relative I didn't know about. A friend from Mum or Dad's past? The more I thought about it, the more the mystery grew. Unable to sit still, I decided to do some investigating. If my parents weren't going to tell me what was inside the box, maybe I could find out who it belonged to. I started by grabbing an old photo album from the bookshelf. Mom had always loved taking pictures, and we had stacks of albums filled with memories from vacations, birthdays, and holidays. Flipping through the pages, I scanned every photo, looking for any hint of the initials RS. But there was nothing, no names, no labels, no clues, just smiling faces and happy moments that seemed so far removed from the strange tension I'd felt today. Feeling frustrated, I decided to check something else. Mom's journal. I know, it's not exactly polite to snoop through someone's private things, but desperate times call for desperate measures, right? I found her journal tucked away in her bedside drawer. I didn't plan to read everything, just skim for anything about the box or the initials. As I flipped through the pages, I noticed how beautifully Mom described little moments from her life. She wrote about baking cookies for me, about how much she loved the smell of spring flowers, about how proud she was when I won a school award. But then, I found an entry that stopped me in my tracks. Today, I thought about RS again. It's been so long, but some memories never fade. I wonder if Mia will ever know the truth. I hope she doesn't feel the burden of this part of our past. My heart raced as I read the words. The truth? What truth? And why would it be a burden for me? Before I could read more, I heard Mum's voice from the kitchen. Mia, dinner's almost ready. Come set the table. I quickly closed the journal and put it back where I found it, my mind spinning. The initials RS weren't just some random letters. They meant something to Mom. Something deep and important. But what did it all mean? And why did it feel like this secret was tied to me? I walked back to the living room. Glancing at the box once more, it felt heavier now. Even though I hadn't touched it, whatever was inside wasn't just an object. It was a story, a piece of my family's history that I was determined to uncover. As I set the table, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger than I'd imagined. That night, after dinner, I couldn't take it anymore. The box, the initials, the journal, everything felt like it was piling up in my head. I needed answers. After we finished eating, I helped clear the table. Mum was washing dishes, and Dad was flipping through a magazine in the living room. It seemed like the perfect moment. Mom, Dad, I began, trying to keep my voice steady. Can we talk for a minute? They both looked up at me, surprised. Mom wiped her hands on a towel, and Dad set his magazine aside.
What's up, sweetheart?
Dad asked, his voice warm but curious. I hesitated for a moment, my hands gripping the back of a chair. Then I decided to just go for it. It's about the box, I said, the one I brought down from the attic. I need to know what it is. Who does it belong to? And what's inside? Mom and Dad exchanged a glance, the kind of look adults give each other when they're deciding what to say. It made me feel even more anxious.
It's just an old keepsake,
Mom said, her voice calm but a little too dismissive. But it's more than that, isn't it? I pressed. I saw the initials on the bottom. RS. I saw how both of you reacted when you saw it, and I paused, debating whether to bring up the journal.
And what?
Dad prompted, leaning forward slightly, and I saw something in Mom's journal. I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Mom's eyes widened, and for a moment, she looked hurt.
Mia, you read my journal?
I didn't mean to, I blurted out. I was just trying to understand. You wrote about RS and said something about the truth and a burden. I don't know what it means, but I feel like it's important. The room went silent. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator in the background. Finally, Dad broke the silence. He sighed deeply and leaned back in his chair.
Maybe it's time we told her.
He said, looking at Mom. Told me what? I asked, my voice trembling. Mom sat down at the table, her expression soft but serious. She reached across and took my hand in hers.
Mia,
She began.
the box belonged to someone very special to us. Someone who we lost a long time ago.
My heart started to pound. Lost? Who? Dad leaned forward, his elbows on the table.
RS stands for Rachel Summers.
He said quietly.
She was your older sister.
I stared at them, my mind racing. Sister, but I don't have a sister.
You did.
Mom said, her voice breaking slightly.
Rachel was born before you, but she passed away when she was very young. We kept the box because it has some of her things. Things that remind us of her.
I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. A sister? I had a sister. And I never knew. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice shaking.
We wanted to protect you.
Dad said gently,
It was such a painful time for us, and we didn't want to burden you with something so sad when you were so little.
I looked at the box, tears welling up in my eyes. Suddenly, it didn't feel like a mystery anymore. It felt like a piece of my family that had been hidden away. Like a part of me I didn't even know was missing. What's inside? I asked softly. Mom hesitated, then stood up and walked over to the drawer by the fridge. She pulled out a small silver key and handed it to me.
Why don't you open it?
She said. I held the key in my hand, feeling its cool weight. Slowly, I walked over to the box and inserted the key into the lock. It clicked open, and I lifted the lid. Inside were small treasures, a tiny baby bracelet, a stuffed bunny with worn-out ears, and a stack of letters tied with a ribbon. I picked up the letters and saw my parents' handwriting. They were love letters they had written to Rachel when she was still a baby, filled with hopes and dreams for her future. Tears streamed down my face as I read the words. Even though I had never met her, I could feel the love my parents had for Rachel, and the pain they must have felt when they lost her. As I sat there, surrounded by the quiet hum of the house and the treasures from the box, I felt like I was holding a part of my family's story that had been hidden for so long. It wasn't just a box anymore. It was a window into a world I never knew existed. The letters were the most fascinating part. They weren't just letters. They were like a diary my parents had kept together for Rachel. I unfolded one carefully, feeling the delicate paper between my fingers. Dear Rachel, Mom's handwriting began, neat and careful. Today you smiled at us for the first time. It was like the sun broke through the clouds, lighting up everything around you. We can't wait to watch you grow up and see the wonderful person you'll become. My heart clenched as I read those words. It was like Mum's love for Rachel was pouring out of the paper. Even all these years later, I opened another letter, this one written by Dad. Dear Rachel, it read. His handwriting a little messier, but full of warmth. Your laugh is the best sound in the world. I could listen to it all day. I hope you always find reasons to laugh, no matter where life takes you. Love, Dad? I wiped my eyes, the tears flowing freely now. She must have been so special. I whispered. Mum and Dad sat on either side of me. Mum put her arm around my shoulders, and Dad placed his hand gently on mine.
Mum
said softly.
She was only with us for a short time, but she changed our lives forever. She taught us how to love deeply, even through pain.
I looked at the little stuffed bunny in the box. It was small, with floppy ears and faded pink fur. I picked it up carefully, holding it close. Did she love this? I asked. Mum nodded, a small smile playing on her lips.
She did. She used to carry it everywhere. We called it Mr. Flopsy.
I smiled through my tears. Mr. Flopsy, I repeated, imagining a tiny version of Rachel holding the bunny tightly. As I continued to explore the box, I found a small photo album tucked under the letters. I opened it slowly, revealing pictures of a baby with big, bright eyes and a tiny, curious smile. That's her? I asked, my voice trembling. Dad nodded.
That's Rachel.
I stared at the pictures, memorizing every detail of her face. In one photo, she was sitting on Dad's lap, giggling as he made a funny face. In another, Mom was holding her close, her eyes filled with so much love it almost hurt to look at. For the first time, I felt like I truly understood my parents. Their love for Rachel hadn't gone away. It had just been stored in this box, waiting for the right time to be shared. Why did you keep this a secret for so long? I asked, my voice quieter now.
We weren't ready.
Mom admitted. Talking about Rachel always brought back so much pain. But as you got older, we realized it wasn't just our story anymore. It was part of your story too. I looked up at them, my heart full. I'm glad you told me, I said. I feel like I know her now, even if I never got to meet her. Mom hugged me tightly, and Dad placed a gentle kiss on the top of my head.
She would have loved you, Mia.
Dad said.
And we love you. More than you'll ever know.
I hugged them back, the weight of the mystery finally lifting. The box wasn't just a collection of objects, it was a reminder of how much love our family held. Even through the hardest times,